Welcome to the AI Riff, where we cut through the noise and break down the top AI stories of the week with real talk and real relevance. No hype, no fluff, just a vendor agnostic take on what's actually shaping your world today. Whether you're in tech, lending, or just trying to make sense of the headlines, we're here to separate the wheat from the chaff and the facts from fiction. Now let's get started with your hosts, Mario Di Benedetto, Rob Katz, Ruth Lee, and me, Kyle Myers. We hope you enjoy this episode of the AI Riff.
Welcome to the big episode 20.
Episode 20. Wait, where are the balloons? I had the balloons around here somewhere.
You were in charge of balloons, Kyle.
Well, that's if we had 20 people watching.
One more episode, we'll be able to drink.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So for 21, we'll do it live.
Yes.
How's that?
That's awesome. Yeah, because of 18, we were voting. And so now we're going to be drinking. What do we got today, Mario?
So today, we're actually doing something that one of our listeners actually suggested. And it was something I hadn't heard that was going on. We'll go to a specific article about JPMorgan, but I think it's something that we're probably going to see more of, having to do with lenders, banks starting to dictate that you can't just slide AI into their environments without letting them know. And most importantly, you can't have something, including RPA or whatever, like you can't have something they already use and add AI without their explicit permission. And I thought that was a pretty huge deal. I don't know, and I'm curious what you guys think about how pervasive that's going to become, because if I'm a lender / bank, that's absolutely my position, right? To do this.
I think time was going to, it was just a matter of time before that happened. And honestly, I think they're also, as indicated in the article, they're creating a bit of a cottage industry around that compliance and about that conforming to the AI standards and building out, very simplistic, red light, green light, yellow light kind of rules where you're saying, hey, I want to be like JPMorgan Chase, or I want to have that standard that's set. And, just like a SOC 2 audit that you have for your data centers and all this stuff, it's going to be kind of the same thing. You got to have an audit on your software. What does it do? Where is it good? Where is it bad? What does it touch? Is it outside? Is it inside? Can you pull it in-house? I mean, I think it's a logical step. And I think where it's finally focusing is AI has always been scary to the mortgage and the finance industry because of our sensitive data. And it's been developed, though, in all the cute apps where you can make your face turn into a tiger and you can run around and you can make old pictures turn into people and start talking to you. I can talk to my grandpa from years ago. That's awesome. But that's not the part that needs to be regulated. Those are just fun things. I guess there's some for people being fooled by AI and doing the cheap fakes or whatever. But honestly,
deep fakes.
This is long coming. So I say cheap fakes. So
they're cheap fakes.
Well, one of the things that I liked out of this article and just this topic overall was, we've talked in the past about the doom and gloom of jobs and how AI is going to wipe out jobs and everything, but we've also talked about it's going to create jobs. So one of the new roles that I was unfamiliar with until reading through not only this article, but a couple others on the topic was this responsible AI professional. And this person is responsible within your organization to assure the governance and use of AI is appropriate for your business, to check with your vendors. And Marty, to your point, you're using a vendor and all of a sudden they introduce this new cool AI feature, like who moderates that within your organization to A, be aware that it's happening, and B, understand what's at stake there. I don't know how people get trained to be a responsible AI professional. It's such a new thing and moving so fast, but it was one of the things I'm like, should my daughter get into this? Like, this could be an explosive, high-paying role, right? And some of the specific questions that the article called that not the article, but Chase is going to be looking for is, if they're working with a vendor that does AI, like, how are you documenting model development decisions, right? What fairness metrics are you tracking? How are you monitoring for model drift and performance degradation? What governance mechanisms oversee AI deployment? Like
This,
these are
this isn't just like give the right answer, right? This is like
No, this is dig into
hardcore.
it.
these are
It's
hard. Like,
dig into
how
it.
do you answer these questions? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Just think, because when you talk about like courses, I mean, this is what I have been involved in and working with. And you just think about data governance and management, just that alone. Data source classification, data quality and validation, privacy and consent. I mean, there's like big, because, and then you have data security controls. So, what we've been talking about data security controls, but right now, I mean, is it going to be a SOC 2 type 2 where I just attest that I got some stuff and it's good, or is it going to be real?
So, and what I loved about this, taking the lender bank, perspective, is this is a 0 or 1. Like there's not a lot of gray area in the way it's laid out. It's like you get nothing unless you can answer all these questions. And the truth is some of those questions you asked, Rob, may not apply. Like there's forms of AI where, drift is not an issue because it's using XYZ, whatever else. But my gut tells me north of 90% of every software vendor who's pitching a IMB today just got disqualified, right? Verbally, they probably could be like, humida, 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 here's your answers. But when you ask them to write down the answer and commit to all that, they're out.
Yeah.
20 years ago, when due diligence became a thing, like right after, all of a sudden due diligence became a thing, and we had to do these giant due diligence packages and SIG lights and everything else. I mean, for a while there, nobody had any answers. They were like, have you ever seen this thing? I don't know. Have Judy answer it. All yes, all no. I don't know. And that's what we as an industry did. And so it's really going to be interesting to see, because this is actually where I mean, I think that this is where we as an industry, if we're going to actually reach any of the emerging technologies, this is where it has to start for us.
Well, then aren't we also looking at getting the buy off? Like JPMorgan Chase, that's great. They buy and sell their own loans. They have a huge portfolio. They have ability to be everything to a client from the origination all the way to servicing. But what about the clients out there that are installing tools where they have to sell it to an investor, or they have to do things where they're going to be responsible with reps and warrants or buybacks? They got to have answers to these questions. So we're looking at it not only as a framework for success for the vendors to sell their wares to the lenders. It's also a framework for success for, if we can get an actual published framework, or maybe this is the beginning of it, then the people who purchase these loans say, oh, okay, you adhere to this compliance code, therefore you'll be fine, and we accept your loan, and we're not going to question it that way because all your tools obey these rules. So I think it's really healthy for the mortgage environment, especially after 2008 and the confidence in the AAA loans and everything else, and the tranches of loans that were failing. We had no idea that what was in those. Well, now they want to know what's in them all the time. So this will tell you which loans have AI and did they hold them to a standard.
I totally agree with you, Kyle. But and coming back tomorrow to your point, the rapid dequalification of vendors who can't answer these questions, and I think, frankly, impossible to answer some of these questions for some vendors. I'm going to throw out a total fictitious use case, but let's say that there's a vendor who builds a RAG data retrieval, looking up guidelines to answer questions. And their way of taking the source guidelines and embedding them into this vector database that is used to be able to retrieve it later is an API to OpenAI. They have no idea or exposure to model drift in OpenAI's back end that is converting their guidelines into these vector databases, zero visibility. So how could they possibly answer the question with confidence of how are you controlling for drift? They can't. And if they come back and say, we can't tell you we're controlling for drift, then Chase isn't going to buy their software, right? So it's a great framework. It's just going to make it so hard for startups and other businesses that are dependent on these back end tools that don't have the visibility to be able to answer the questions.
Well, I want to say that, because everybody's been talking about, well, it's CFPB, et cetera. This isn't CFPB, this is SEC. Because this is what goes in if we're going to securitize. And a lot of these guys want to securitize. And you have to sign those disclosure docs under Reg AB. You don't get to just kind of, and that means real legal risk, not fake legal risk or, oh, we're going to send you a document because your data got exposed. And so we'll give you an identity guard or something. It's like real, actual legal risk. And it goes to the CEOs, it goes to the CFOs. I mean, it's not just kind of sort of, it's real. And people go to jail for this stuff.
So, and Rob, I could take the other side of the argument. So we just we're a software company, right? In my regular job, and we just got a vendor questionnaire, right? Onboarding to a new lender, and they give you a standard questionnaire. And this was one of the most efficient because it got to about the fourth question before it said, "Are you SOC 2 certified? Prove it." Right? Give us a report. And I imagine that part of this is getting vendor questionnaires to have the standard set of questions that start to at least elicit a response to put the vendor on the hook for it. The other side of that equation is that if your vendor people don't know how to interpret your response, right? Like what if it's like, yeah, we don't have drift because whatever, fill in the blank with some, inane answer. They're like,
Techno-jargon.
oh, they say they don't have drift. Okay, they don't have drift. We're all good. Like, no, that's where that role comes in, and the importance of, the responsible AI person, whatever it is. Somebody has to really be deep into this, and they have to understand when somebody says, OpenAI ChatGPT 5.0, blah blah blah. Like that implies X, and Claude implies Y, and yada yada. Like that's an intense job.
That is,
and naturally, the security officer is going to be the one that's taxed at first, and they're going to just be like, it's going to just shut things down because security officers are there to keep the companies out of the newspaper and keep from problems happening. And they're going to go extreme to say, no, this is all new. I'm just going to, no, that's shut down, that's shut down, that's shut down. And then you don't get any type of growth or useful tools because you're so worried about the risk. So
only the small lenders who are willing to just say, I'm not going to really go down this road, and I'm going to be, take a little bit of a risk here. I'm going to try this vendor because they have some cool stuff, and I'll take the risk because I'm small enough, and maybe it's going to make a difference for me because I can do it, and the big guys can't because they're handcuffed, like you said.
Yeah,
right?
but you got to be careful about that. The one analogy that my old boss used to tell me was, he said loan officers would come into his office and say, "This is a good deal, we should do it." And he'd say, "If it's not, it's my ass." And he'd say, "Your ass isn't big enough." Because their name is on the shingle on the wall. They're the house that was set up for, their house is going to get taken. All of those things if that loan doesn't succeed. So it's small businesses, they almost are at a extreme they are risk averse because one bad loan could throw them out of business. And
But Kyle, do you feel like, I mean, one bad loan can throw them out of business, and then they just open up underneath another shingle, like 2 days later.
Okay.
I mean, I hate to say it, but even the big guys, 200 million loans later, and they just open up underneath another shingle, and and that is kind of maybe that sounds cynical.
It's not cynical. It's historical. That's happened in the past, and we know that. And so, what is it? Is a lender ready, or is kind of going to follow that same path? Are they going to do those things? I don't know. I think the framework, though, would we have expected this to not be JPMorgan, JPMorgan Chase? Would we have expected this to be somebody else, or is this the logical person that would have said, right? The person, I say, like he's still around, but like the company, that's the logical company. So yeah, the big guy's got to start it, and it's usually the other way around, kind of like with notary e-notes. You had to get the back end to accept the e-notes, and so you got to get the big guys, the servicers, the wholesalers. Those guys got to accept those e-notes. And so this is kind of similar, where you got to get the big guys who are buying the loans to accept these standards and force those standards down the food chain to the brokers that are brokering loans to Chase, to the IMBs that are broken, that are corresponding with Chase, and you got to push that all down through the channels.
Well, think about what this is going to do from a vendor to lender scenario, right? It is that, Chase comes out with this framework. You find some vendor that can answer the question to Chase's satisfactory. That is their green light to go sell to every other lender. And so, to put in the effort to get onto the green checkbox with Chase is going to open up the door for anyone who's selling an AI product to anyone in the banking world. And if you can't get there, so maybe you're a mid-sized lender, you can just ask the question like, well, have you been approved by Chase for AI? Oh, you haven't? Oh, well, come back to me when you have. It's like, I don't understand how to ask the right questions and to trust that you're giving me the right answers. Mario, to your point, they said they do. They said they handle drift, but Chase is going to get to the bottom of it, right? So it's really going to be interesting. I'm excited about having a framework. I think it's cool. And I think this responsible AI professional role is the person at a lender shop that's going to be most excited about having an RAI on staff is compliance, because there will now be somebody else in the organization that is hated more than them, because this AI person is going to say no to every vendor that walks in the door who can't prove the answer, right? So you're going to have all the pressure of, we've got to do AI. Let's take care of AI. I want to grow my business without hiring more people. And this person's going to be going, I can't find a vendor that can say yes to all my questions. We can't move forward with AI, right? So yeah, they'll be pretty well hated.
Well,
So
and
knowing,
it's going to
go
be
ahead.
cross-functional, because you also have to be able to identify a lot of the relevant regulations that are going to be the EU AI Act, NIST, GDPR, CCP, even HIPAA, depending on how and what you are doing. And it just depends, right? I mean, sometimes we get weird things in our docs, but for so very many reasons, like having that, we've always been kind of at the low end of the compliance totem pole. Everything kind of rolls downhill and we wait for the big guys to do it, and then we follow along. It was like the 2008. We thought somebody was minding the store. But the reality is that I think that on this one, we're going to find that this is not something that we can just delay on. We have to be able to track those emerging AI specific legislations. We're going to have to understand sector specific guidelines, conduct all of those gap analyses. And nobody wants to do all that. They just want to say, oh my gosh, it tells me that I can make rice pudding. And unfortunately, that's not the only damage. That bad rice pudding isn't the only damage AI can do.
So let me go for the over under here. So, and I'm going to take banks out, because I'm going to go out on a limb and say banks have to have some level of this, right? Just by the nature of being banks, they're going to be much more likely to do something just like JPMorgan. So let's just talk IMBs. I'm going to set the bar at anybody outside of the top 100 IMBs. The likelihood of them having such a policy is less than 25%.
Unless they're a credit union.
Yeah, let's carve out credit unions.
Or-
Credit unions are going to have similar things to banks.
Or
credit unions
unless they're selling the bulk of their stuff to someone who does have these requirements. And that's where the trickle down is going to
That's a
happen. They're going
great
to
point,
say,
right?
you no longer have to do like Fannie Mae does their normal audits on IMBs, where they come in and make sure you're doing all the right things and that you have checks and balances. It's almost like a SOX audit, but it's basically I don't know, I can't remember what they call it. The Fannie Mae
more audit.
Yes. So when they come in, they're going to be not Fannie Mae, but when the lenders that come in that you serve like you sell to Wells, you sell to Chase, you sell to Bank of America, you sell these, they're going to say, are you using AI in any of your processes? And they're going to say yes. Okay, here's the list of questions you need to answer and confirm. Otherwise, we're not going to buy your loans. I have a feeling those requirements could get pretty sticky for the small guys, even though they don't want to comply to them. They're going to have to choose vendors that do.
So what's happening with all of the loans getting brokered through UWM, who has Geo and Nia and Bia and Zio and X, like all these tools, AI tools they claim that they're offering and using, and it's out there. Like there's stuff already out there in the market in a big way. Are they
Well,
are
if they
they
don't ever
subject to that?
adopt the policy, then people can sell to United Wholesale, and great, there's your funding source. They're going to capture the business of the people that don't want to go through those audits. You know, I don't know. That seems like the most logical. There's always people. Just that's kind of the where it was all born from QM and non QM, right? You-
I'm going to go back to the old days when this kind of similar thing happened. Nobody had quality control audit policies. Nobody had them. They just didn't have those things. And then all of a sudden, FHA came out and said, you're going to have them. And guess what we had? Everybody all of a sudden, and now they all look remarkably similar. And they, I mean, they're just names taken out of the same thing, but that's what people grew and they evolved around. I think that you're right, Kyle, which is they're, all of a sudden people are going to have to start thinking about these things, and they'll either choose not to use, which could be one path, or they will have, they will only be able to work with really the high end of the market in terms of vendors.
Should the government get involved? Like, should the NBA be saying, there should be some standard here then to make it a level playing field so that you don't
no, I think the
initiate, so we don't
JPMorgan
set the
Chases
market
are
up?
going to set the tone.
I
There's don't
disagree. I think that something like the e-sign or the UATA framework, which states can just adopt and pull down, would be great.
Okay, so you point to the ease of adoption and ease of an instant framework to do that. To that degree, I think the government, having it available to the government to adopt as a state or national policy, I just don't. I think the government's best served. This market has to take care of itself. The government can put the overlays to make sure end people are not hurt, right? The consumer cannot be hurt. That's the government has to come in and say you can't be out there hurting people, and and abusing them, giving them disparate outcomes. You can't do that. To that degree, I agree with you, but to say it's a standard that you have to comply, all lenders, all banks, from the government, I think the industry should police that.
I feel like we covered this a couple episodes ago. The regulations are already in place, right? Like you
Yeah,
said, don't hurt the
people do it
borrower,
right now, right?
right? I mean, those compliance rules are already there. It's the, you know, publishing a framework that gets shared on what kind of questions to ask and what are acceptable answers, and having the Fannies and the Freddies come out and say, look, let's be reasonable. Like, we understand that you don't understand, you can't answer all of these questions, but this is like the framework in which a vendor should be able to answer these questions and what kind of answers you're looking for to get that kind of guidance so that a lender can make a decision if they want to work with a vendor or not. Because really, for 99% of what we're talking about, that's what we're talking about, is the lender is going to make a decision to work with a vendor, yes or no. Very few lenders are investing directly in AI, except for the Rockets and the giant ones, and UWM and so forth. And granted, they cover a huge percentage of loans, but let's focus on the majority of the businesses that are out there. It's a yes, no decision. Do I want to work with this vendor? Well, how do I know if this vendor is using AI? I'm asking these questions. I see these answers. I'm following the framework of what to even ask to know what I'm doing. I see that Chase has approved this person on AI. I feel good working with this vendor. If we do anything more complicated than that, how's any lender of a typical size lender going to be able to respond, right? These guys aren't going to have responsible AI people on staff. They're going to ask the head of compliance to do it, and it's going to be a mishmash. And so I don't think we need new regulatory stuff. We talked about that before. We just need to enforce the regulations that are there, taking into consideration these new tools, and help the lenders with frameworks of what questions to ask. I mean, Mario, you did such a phenomenal job laying out a methodology to select what business tasks you should even consider to take to AI. Maybe your next blog post is, here's a framework of question to ask for vendors that offer AI solutions,
Yeah, no, and the fun part for us, right, I think, is going to be to watch, because we know that template is very different if you're doing a solution maybe at the front end of the process versus the back end of the process. Like, there's going to be different implications depending on exactly what the AI is touching,
Yep.
as to whether some of these things are super mission critical or they're like not even relevant, right? And that too, somebody has to be aware, like, okay, that doesn't apply to this use case, so
That's right.
it's a non-issue and whatever else. And
Yeah, document imaging and data extraction versus decisioning. Those are two very different ends of the spectrum, right?
Right. And AI is moving so quickly that there's no way you're putting out a framework that is going to capture everything today. But you can try, right? You can get at least the base framework down, and then give some people. Maybe we'll make our own AI that will guide people on the AI questions to ask about AI.
So I think we're all in agreement. This is a good thing, right?
I got a sense of the movie Inception there for a second, but yeah. Wait, we're still in the van. Oh my God.
Good movie. If anybody hasn't seen it, really good movie, Inception.
Yeah. So Mario, I think we were trying to let our listeners know we're trying to make our podcast a little more concise and really just focus on an article or so and really tighten it up. And if this is the perfect, as Rob so aptly put, the dog walking time to throw us into your ears while you're walking the dog, it's about a good time for them to have a good jump around and they can go back home and nap. So are we good for today? Do we have anything else we want to discuss about this?
No.
Okay. Well,
We just can't wait to talk about what we did with AI.
I know, right?
Oh, that's right. We do have to do that.
How many times have you done this? This is 20 times, Kyle.
Okay. Well, so I got accused just recently that now I'm using it too much. I'm asking AI everything about everything, even if it can't give me the right answer. I'm being told, "Oh, you keep asking it." My son says, "Don't believe anything that thing says," and I'm like, "Come on." So he's the contrarian. But I also get asked to, hey, can you look this up? Can you look this up? And I just start talking into my co-pilot. In fact, I was talking into my co-pilot, and my wife came in and she said, "Who's that talking on the phone?" It's like, no, that's not a person. That's the AI. And she's like, "Oh, okay, that's too loud. Turn it down." So I'm like, okay, but that's my experience right now, and it's typical. I'm still doing cursory stuff. I'm not developing in it yet, and I did not do any vibe coding. I didn't do anything like that.
I'm happy to go next, and I'll do a balanced one this week, or attempt. Somewhere a million years ago, whenever, I don't know when, I applied to be able to get Perplexity's AI browser comment. And I got an email last week saying you're allowed, right? So I was allowed to download a copy of Comet, install it. Like every browser, it's an incredible pain in the you-know-what because it wants to keep telling you, please make me your default browser, please. And no, I'm not making Perplexity's Comet my default browser. Generally speaking, my initial experiences were a fail. Like, I just don't get it. I used one of actually kind of your use case, Rob. I'm going on vacation. I had already mapped out about 25 different places in Rome that we want to go to, and we kind of know the sequence of how to go to them. But I opened up maps.google with my places on it, and I said, map it out for me. And to be honest, it gave a really high level, like, hey, go over here and then go over there. It didn't even match up all the places. I said, this really isn't worth the time and the energy, especially since it's not my default browser and I got to think to go open it to do something. The positive is I actually put that out on my TikTok where I do AI stuff. And I asked people, like, are you finding good usage for it? And you know what? A number of people have come back and said, yes, they really like it when they're in something and they don't know how to use the app. So they used examples like Jira and Confluence, but other things when they're brand new to an app, they run it inside of Comet and they say, how do I do this in here? And it can actually figure out inside of the app, oh, you want to do that? Go over here. So it's like you don't have to build the click-throughs for users anymore, right? The AI browser can show you the way. So that's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool.
So I'm going to add on to that because that's something that I do routinely, which is I do screen grabs. And for example, if I'm in QuickBooks and QuickBooks, for whatever reason, they make the decision, it's Tuesday, so we need to change every name on every field, on everything that we do. We'll change it again next Tuesday. We'll let you know. And for no apparent reason. And so I'll just take a screen grab and stick it right in. And I'm like, go find it. find where this is and give me a strict walkthrough. No, you're wrong. I want a strict walkthrough with their new release notes. So it'll go read all the release notes and give them all to me, and then walk me through how to stop making the recurring invoice recur. I mean, because oh my gosh, something that they were like, oh, make this easy change. And then you're stuck with it for life. So that's what I do. Anyway.
So I just use it like Kyle all the time. So it's hard for me to now remember what I did in this last week that was cool. So the thing that's popping in my head is my dog has gotten progressively more finicky in what he's willing to eat. And every time he changes and refuses to eat, we spend more money on the next quality of food.
Who's trained here?
We were spending so much money on his food. Brand is like chicka chicka bow wow or something like that. He loved it. And then he stopped eating that. We're like, what are we going to do? So my wife grabs ChatGPT and says, what's a homemade recipe for dog food? And came up with something. It took her 5 minutes to prepare it last night. We got enough food for a week. He can't get enough of it. I'm sure he'll stop eating it in a couple of days, or he's probably behind me going, oh, I'll stop eating it now. Ground turkey, some other stuff that went into it, loved it. It was an easy recipe to follow. It was a third of the cost of what we were spending for the other food, and it's all human grade, type stuff. So got a good dog food recipe from ChatGPT.
That is absolutely a home run, right? Because we're on that same Farmer's Dog train. This episode is sponsored by Farmer's Dog.
Not really.
No, not really. I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
that's funny.
I highly recommend. So I'll let you do your own search, but if you get tripped up, I'll send you the recipe that we're using.
Rob, it sounds amazingly alike to my journey becoming a vegan. That I just, the food, they say it's vegan, and I try it. I'm like, I don't like that. And then I try something else, and then it ends up, my wife makes the best vegan food for me ever, homemade. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. Ruth, did you have something before we left?
Well, I was just going to say that, the easiest way, by the way, if you do boil a chicken, is to put it into one of those KitchenAid things and rotate it, and it'll debone the whole thing. I do that for our dog because we have the same issue, and I can't afford it. I just don't want to afford spending $100 a month on my dog food.
We used to get the rotisserie chicken from Costco, and our vet's like, oh no, that's not healthy for the dog. I'm like, why is it healthy for people then? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, wait a second.
It has too much salt. And so you just have to boil a chicken and then stick it in.
Oh, okay. Well, see, this is not only an AI show. This is a cooking show, a pet care show. And what else was it today? But I think we're good for today. But I wanted to just say, I'm Kyle Myers.
I'm Rob Katz.
I'm Ruth Lee.
And I'm still Mario De Benedetto.
And this has been the AI Riff.
Wires hum like whispers in the deep dark night. Shadows dancing strange under neon light. Digits spinning fast like a gambler's hand. The clock chimes change, it's the new command. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Binary prophets riding fading streams. Data flows Set the rhythm to the beat of change we sing. Every click and hum a key that rings. A revolution, quiet, but it's vast. Building empires where echoes of futures cast. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of code like the endless ocean.